Is Dolly Parton's life as joyful as it looks? I used to think so. Sparkle, jokes, big hair, bigger hits. Then I dug into old interviews and fresh reports, and the picture got deeper. At 79, Dolly is still releasing music, launching projects, and smiling for cameras. But behind that smile, she's grieving the man she loved for nearly 60 years. She even says she's more a workhorse than a superstar. That tells me so much. She works through the pain. I'm Sarah Reed. I grew up on these legends, and I've spent years swimming in archives and family stories to find the parts most people miss. With Dolly, the gap between the glitter and the grit is real. Think about it, over 50 studio albums, thousands of songs, films like Steel Magnolias, and her own theme park. Yet right now, her heart is carrying private sorrow most of us never see. What's the first Dolly Parton memory that comes to your mind? Comment below. I want to hear your story before I share mine. Here's the truth I found. The joy is real, but so is the grief. And to understand that shadow behind the shine, we have to meet the man who stayed out of the spotlight but lived at the center of her world. Let's step into Carl Dean's quiet story. Most people never saw his face. That was the point. Carl Thomas Dean met Dolly in 1964 outside a Nashville laundromat. She was 18. They married in 1966 when she was 20 and built a life few of us could imagine. He ran an asphalt paving business, stayed far from the cameras, and became the one voice that always told her she could do it. Dolly says he believed in her star power even when she didn't. Carl passed in early March 2025 at 82. The family asked for privacy, and yet his presence still hums through her work. He inspired Jolene, that pleading song born from a real twinge of jealousy. He nudged her courage during bold turns, all the way into the 2023 Rockstar album. He was her quiet cheerleader, the steady road under all those rhinestones. Here's what that tells me. When your partner is your anchor, you keep finding ways to talk to them. Dolly talks in melodies. So after he was gone, she went back to the only language that ever fit. The next stop in this journey is where grief turns to chords and verses, how Dolly uses songs as love letters she can still send. What do you sing when your heart is scared? Dolly turned fear into Jolene, the most elegant plea in country music. That wasn't just a catchy chorus, it was the sound of a wife watching other women admire her husband and wondering if charm could pull him away. Real life spilled into the hook, and millions felt it. Fast forward to now. After Carl's death, Dolly released a new ballad, If You Hadn't Been There. It's tender and brave. The arrangement swells with a choir. At the end, she whispers the title like a prayer. She called their nearly 60-year bond unforgettable. And you can hear that truth in the hush between notes. This is how she makes the private visible without overexposing her heart. And remember, she's always done this. In 1974, she wrote I Will Always Love You to end a partnership with grace. Songwriting is her therapy. She doesn't run from the ache, she shapes it. It's why these tracks feel like diary pages set to steel strings. But even the best song needs a backbone. Where does Dolly find the strength to keep singing through the storm? The next layer of the spiral is the root that never leaves her: faith. You don't stop living just because you have a broken heart. That's Dolly, plain and strong. At 79, she talks about enduring faith and resilience. She's carried gospel tones since Coat of Many Colors, but now you can feel how belief holds her up. When grief hits, she leans into prayer, family, and the simple idea that morning always comes. She's also honest about the hard parts. Years ago, she admitted there was a dark spell where she felt wounded and even pondered giving up. She never attempted it, but she said she thought about it. Then she did what she always does, turn to music. My guitar is my best therapy, she said. That line lives rent-free in my head. Faith and craft working side by side. I picture her talking to God, then picking up a pen. That rhythm, hope, then work keeps her moving. She even jokes that life is Rocky Road ice cream, bumps included. I love that image. It's sweet and tough at the same time. But devotion doesn't stop the clock, and Dolly doesn't try to. She lets faith steady her, and then she goes back to work. Which raises the next question: why is she busier than ever at 79? Superstar never felt right to her. Workhorse did. That's how Dolly sees herself, and oh, does the proof stack up. Right now, she's launching Southern-inspired frozen meals with a major food partner, expanding her Duncan Hines baking line, and prepping a memoir called Star of the Show. She's also celebrating 40 years of Dollywood with special events. And the big one, a new Broadway musical about her life, set for 2026. She likes to say each venture is a new branch on her career tree. You can feel the sap still running. Is this coping, passion? I think it's both. Making keeps her sane, and it honors the voice that always cheered her on, Carl's. When she builds, he's still there. If deep dives like this make your heart beat, subscribe to Golden American Legends. I make these stories with care, so you can feel the people behind the myths. Work helps, but it isn't the only anchor. When the schedule finally quiets, Dolly reaches for something even older than the stage, home. Let's go there, back to the Smoky Mountains, where the past now sings with her in the present. Why trace your roots when you're already a household name? Because home heals. In late 2024, Dolly released Smoky Mountain DNA, Family, Faith, and Fables, a true family album. Her cousin Richie Owens helped produce it, and they pulled in 5 generations of Parton voices. They even restored recordings of relatives who've passed. Imagine duetting with your ancestors. Goosebumps. The final track, When It's Family, is about acceptance and love, flaws and all. It closes like a hug you didn't know you needed. This isn't just music, it's a map of where Dolly comes from, a reminder that she's part of something bigger than fame. The project had been brewing for years and was completed just before the pandemic, which makes it feel faded somehow, like a message saved for the right season. To me, this is how she steadies herself after loss, by reaching back. If you know the voices that built you, you can stand a little taller in a storm. But honoring your past doesn't erase the scars. Dolly has carried private pains for decades, often smiling through them. Let's open that quiet chapter and see how she survived being working wounded. Here's the chapter most folks miss. In the 1990s, Dolly hit a rough patch. She felt betrayed in business, turned to food for comfort, and said she even pondered suicide. She didn't attempt it, but she confessed the thought. Not everybody knew what I was going through. I was just working wounded. That's a gut punch, isn't it? Her cure wasn't flashy. She picked up her guitar. Music is my best therapy, she said. And you can see that pattern across her life. In 1974, she wrote I Will Always Love You to end her partnership with Porter Wagoner gracefully. Heartbreak transformed into art. Decades later, when another storm hit, she followed the same path, writing her way back to daylight. I respect that honesty. It's not drama. It's discipline. She lets the hurt breathe, then she puts it to work. That's a lesson for all of us. Which brings us to the present. If she's already stared down the dark and walked through it, what does aging look like for a woman who refuses to dim? Spoiler, it looks bold, it looks kind, and it still looks very Dolly. How do you carry almost 8 decades with this much light? Dolly was born January 19, 1946, 79 years young in 2025, and she still moves with purpose. She loves to joke about herself. It costs a lot of money to look this cheap, she once said, laughing off any fear about looks or age. That humor matters. It signals something deeper. She's not hiding from time. She keeps creating because that keeps her alive inside. She often shares the idea that you can't help getting older, but you don't have to get old. If you watch her, the proof is everywhere. New songs, new ventures, new ways to connect. Age hasn't muted her, it's sharpened her. But here's the part I hold close. Staying active doesn't mean ignoring grief. It means giving the pain a seat, then choosing to get up and do the next right thing anyway. That's the Dolly way. And when you give yourself that much life, you tend to give it away too. Which brings us to another constant thread in her story, her habit of turning love into action for strangers and neighbors alike. Why does she give so much? Because she remembers being the kid who had very little. Since 1995, her imagination library has mailed free books to children, well over 200 million and counting. In 2020, she quietly cut a $1 million check that helped fund vaccine research. And when storms hit home in 2024, she and her businesses pledged big money for recovery in the region. That's not a press stunt, that's muscle memory. I think helping others softens the edge of her own sorrow. When you pour out, you make room for breath to come back in. That's how it feels when I watch her. She doesn't lecture, she acts. Simple as that. Giving also gives shape to a legacy. It says, this is what my life stood for. But Dolly is doing more than writing checks. She's writing the story itself so no one else will. And that takes us to the projects that will outlive her. Pages and stages where the truth can be told with her voice leading the way. With so much behind her, Dolly is busy planting for the future. She has a new memoir, star of the show, set to pull us through her life from the Smokies to the spotlight. She's producing a Broadway musical, Dolly, an original musical, slated for 2026, to tell that journey in her own words and melodies. And she's celebrating Dollywood's 40th with special events that honor the fans who walked beside her. Smoky Mountain DNA sits right inside that legacy plan, 5 generations singing, a family tree you can hear. All of it says, remember who we are. I love how she frames her career. Each new venture is a branch on the tree. That's a powerful image, especially now. And I keep hearing her say that Carl always believed in her star power. In a way, these projects keep his voice near. They make sure the story, messy, brave, beautiful, stays intact. But why do we, across generations, feel so close to her? It isn't just the hits. It's something older and softer. It's the way nostalgia and truth meet in her smile. Dolly is old-school glamour and small-town heart. Big wigs, bigger gowns, and a voice that still sounds like a front porch story. That blend makes people feel safe and seen. Boomers grew up with 9 to 5. Gen X and millennials watched her act, write, and build an empire. Gen Z found her online and said, whoa, she's real. Across platforms, her following runs into the tens of millions. That's not just fame, that's trust. Fans don't just enjoy her, they protect her. They care about whether she's okay. That bond got even stronger when she let us glimpse the grief behind the glitter. We saw the human under the halo, and it only made the halo brighter. This is also why her story fits my mission. I love bridging vintage legends with today. Dolly shows that the past isn't dusty, it's alive and speaking. When she writes to her ancestors or whispers a goodbye to her husband on a new track, she's telling us our own stories still matter too. Hold that feeling as we close. The final step is to gather the lessons and carry them with us, like a song you can't stop humming. Here's what I take from Dolly at 79. The sparkle is earned. The smile coexists with sorrow. She lost the love of her life in March 2025 after nearly 60 years together, and she keeps going with faith, work, and service. She writes her grief into songs like If You Hadn't Been There. She digs roots with Smoky Mountain DNA. She calls herself a workhorse, grows her career tree, and plans a musical so her story lives long after she's gone. I'm moved by her discipline. She never used pain as a show. She used it as fuel. I sifted through archives, interviews, and old footage for this episode, and the pattern never changes. She turns dark into dawn. If you felt something today, I'd love to keep sharing these human stories with you. Tap subscribe to Golden American Legends so you don't miss what's next, and share this with someone who needs a little light. Thanks for watching. What part of Dolly's journey resonates most with you? And how do you keep going when life gets heavy? Dolly's life at 79 is a living paradox, rhinestones and reverence, grief and grit. She met Carl at 18, married at 20, stayed devoted for nearly 6 decades, and now she sings to him across that quiet space. She leans on faith, works like a workhorse, gives until it hurts, and builds a legacy on pages and stages so the truth won't fade. For me, that's the lesson. We don't have to choose between sorrow and joy. We can carry both and still make something beautiful. I hope this helped you see the woman behind the legend, the human behind the hits. I'm grateful you spent this time with me. If you found value here, please subscribe, like, and share. It helps me keep telling these stories with heart and care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Golden American Legends. Until then, I'll leave you with one more thought to sit with on your drive, your walk, or your quiet night at home. Let the hard things soften you, not stop you.